Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more. We are beyond excited you're here as we get ready for our epic deep dive of the ACOTAR world. I'm Lexi.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're here to help cure your book hangover. Today is just a quick intro ahead of our A Court of Thorns and Roses, aka ACOTAR journey, and we highly recommend you tune in to today's episode as we explain how spoilers will work for these episodes. We'll walk you through their format and what you can expect from these deep dives, and give you a little bit of insight into who we are, how we fell in love with the series, and what Fantasy Fangirls is all about. But first, don't worry, there are no spoilers in this intro episode. Everyone can safely listen to this episode, no matter what books you have or haven't read.
Except maybe children, because we should also let you know that we are adults who say adult things about adult books. Let us dive in to, first and foremost, the number one question we get at Fantasy Fangirls, and that is, how are the spoilers going to work for the ACOTAR books? So let's go ahead and address it. What spoilers can we expect in our ACOTAR deep dive episodes?
While we will focus our deep dive on the book we're covering, we are giving a blanket spoiler warning for the entire A Court of Thorns and Roses series. That's 5 books, technically 4 plus a novella. The nature of our deep dives bring anything from the series to the table. We need to openly discuss themes, lore, foreshadowing, and other insights to make this deep dive the best it possibly can be. So please only listen to our ACOTAR episodes if/when you have finished all 5 ACOTAR books.
You do not, however, need to read all of the Sarah J Maas universe, aka Throne of Glass and Crescent City, in order to enjoy our ACOTAR deep dives. We will not have spoilers for either of those series, except there will be occasional crossover references and theories that must be discussed in signature Fantasy Fangirls fashion. But we will be discussing those Maasverse-centered theories at the end of those episodes in a very special segment. And we will give a big ol' spoiler warning for the upcoming Maasverse conversation. If it is a specific topic where we can pinpoint which book, or if it's from Throne of Glass or Crescent City, we will call it out in case you've read some, but not all of the SJM books. Otherwise, if it is general to the universe and all of the books in her universe, sorry, we do need to give that blanket Maasverse spoiler warning, and it will be discussing all 3 of the universes. If you have not read Throne of Glass or Crescent City, that's totally okay. All you'll do is just stop the episode when we give that big old spoiler warning, and you won't miss out on any delicious ACOTAR content since it'll be at the end of the episode.
Okay, now that we're clear on what to expect for ACOTAR spoilers and TOG/CC spoilers, I also want to let you know that there are general spoilers for other pop culture stories. If it's embedded in our culture and has been around for, let's say longer than 5-ish years, basically, if you can easily stumble across any of the spoilers on the internet, we will consider it free game. For instance, Harry Potter. We are big Potterheads and will casually reference all 7 books all the time. Or Game of Thrones. That's another big pop culture one as well that we might sprinkle in some references there too. Princess Bride, Twilight, Hunger Games, you get the idea. On the other hand, even though we just wrapped up our Empyrean book deep dives, these ACOTAR episodes will be safe from Iron Flame and Fourth Wing plot spoilers. Even though we might occasionally reference a character trait or a no context inside joke from our months covering it, we promise to be mindful about no story spoilers in case you haven't read Fourth Wing or Iron Flame. Which, hey, if you haven't, we highly recommend you do, and then you have 52 more hours of Fantasy Fangirls content to listen to. All right, so now everybody understands how spoilers work, right? Awesome. Let's introduce ourselves now that we've addressed that.
In case you're new to Fantasy Fangirls, first of all, hello, hi, welcome to the party. I am Nicole, aka the little sister. I am the lover of romance in romantasy and will frequently write love letters to smut literature and make regular sex jokes on this podcast, hence the R rating. However, outside of reading and speaking sex puns into a microphone for a living, I've been an entrepreneur for 5 years, but I've most recently made the switch from my other business into being a full-time fantasy fangirl. It was a big day.
Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. I'm so proud of you.
For me, when it comes to the origin of ACOTAR in my life, however, I started reading it last summer when I had just gotten married, and suddenly my weekends were no longer spent with hours and hours of wedding planning, and I could actually devote my time to something much more leisurely. It was awesome. So I decided to pick up this little known book called ACOTAR. And I had never heard of it. I'd seen it maybe in passing, but I knew nothing about the world. I wasn't on Book Talk. I wasn't on Bookstagram. Basically, my head was buried in the book sand, and I immediately fell head over heels for it. This series is what ignited my love of reading again, and I'm not being dramatic when I say it literally changed my life. See the point 2 seconds ago when this is now my full-time job because I picked up that series over the summer. Also, I am a Colorado resident with my new husband, Brett. He is also currently making his way through the ACOTAR verse. He is on ACOWAR right now, and I'm so proud of him.
And I'm Lexi. I'm 3 years older than Nicole, so I'm the older sister between us, and I am rocking my early 30s. I also live in Colorado. We live pretty close, just like the town next to each other, and it's amazing. I'm the mom also between the two of us. I have 2 young children. My son is 2 and my daughter is 1. They are very feisty and I love them to death. I was climbing the corporate marketing ladder before I had my son, and then I decided to switch to part-time freelancing to stay home with him. After we started the podcast and life really turned upside down the way it took off, I've been slowly shifting more career focus to Fantasy Fangirls, and I'm just loving it so much. So ultimately, I am a stay-at-home mom who also does product marketing work, and I'm a full-time podcaster. It's a running joke that I don't sleep. When it comes to reading, however, I'm more of the lore nerd who especially loves fantasy for all its magical world building, the histories, the politics, those little nuances that really make these fantastical worlds what they are. It's fun because while I of course appreciate the romance and swoon over our shadow daddies, Nicole and I really balance each other out with our different approaches to these romantasy books. I was an avid reader as a kid. I grew up on Harry Potter, and it first ignited my love for fantasy. Then as life happens, it got in the way and I stopped reading for fun. I really forgot what that felt like, reading for fun, fully immersing myself in these worlds, just over the years of being an adult. Then last fall, Nicole told me I have to read this book called A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, she literally made me read this book.
I did.
I didn't know anything about it. I had never heard of it. I hadn't read a new book in years. So after she twisted my arm, I finally caved in and I read it. And then I read the next one. And the next one, and the next one. And within a few weeks, I had gobbled up the series. This series really reminds me of why I love fantasy and why I love reading. And it gave this tired mama just a new pep in her step. I believe that our ACOTAR stories are very similar to so many others in the fandom because it's what got us back into reading and made us feel not just okay, but excited to dive into romance and fantasy and these epic stories with characters that we just fall in love with.
Well, and when Lexi finished reading ACOTAR and was equally obsessed with it as I was, she asked me the question that changed our lives. Why don't we start a podcast? And then begins the whirlwind's origin story of Fantasy Fangirls, because indeed, we're speaking into this microphone. You're listening to us speaking into this microphone. We did start said podcast. We actually pivoted from wanting to cover ACOTAR first into covering Fourth Wing first, because after I went from ACOTAR, I was seeing Fourth Wing all over social media. This is when I had gotten into Book Talk, and I fell head over heels with that world as well. And shock of shocks, I made Lexi read that book too. And she got into it just as much as I was. And with the Iron Flame release coming up, we decided that the timing was perfect, and let's just start with Fourth Wing because this just makes sense. When we say we wanted to start a podcast, I want to be very clear, friends. We had low expectations. Like, if we got 20 downloads in the first week, we'd be happy. Low expectations. But thanks to this magical world of social media, Book Talk, Bookstagram, we went viral again and again and again and again. And instead of 20 downloads in the first week, we hit 5,000 downloads in the first week. And to our absolute surprise, the Fourth Wing community rallied behind these theories and these insights that really resonated with Lexi and I in a way that we could never have imagined, to the point that within 3 months, we hit 1 million downloads. That still gives me chills. I can't even believe it's real. We hit #1 on Spotify in our category. We signed with the world's #1 talent agency and a major podcast network. We brought on an executive producer. Hello, Hayden, our sanity manager. We love you. We grew our passionate, loving community to over 100,000 people, which actually quick shouts to our Patreon, which is freaking amazing. We have the most bopping Discord server. They're incredible on there. We have book clubs. We have monthly live Q&As. We have access to our deep dive outlines, ad-free episodes, and so much more on there. And everyone in our Patreon is just the freaking best. We love them. And to be quite honest, we just weep on a daily basis because this has been the craziest, best roller coaster ride of our lives. And all of that is thanks to this incredible book community.
I'm just still so in awe of this community and everyone who is part of this Fantasy Fangirls journey every single day. It is not lost on us that you choose to listen to us and bring us into your lives. And it is so humbling. And we're just so honored to be part of your days the way that we are. You know, I'm laughing also about the difference between our Fourth Wing intro episode and this one. Like, who would have thought? Oh, back when we recorded it way at the very beginning of September, but I don't even know if we had our social media handles yet. How big this would turn into in just a few short months. Like just when we moved on to the next series. It is absolutely wild to think about.
And speaking of moving into this next series, let's talk about the format and what you can expect from this podcast. This is a book podcast that, to be quite frank, is not your typical book podcast. When we say deep dive, we mean deep dive.
What do you mean deep dive?
No, I'm the sexual pun one, Lexi.
Hey, don't forget about the giant hanging balls.
These episodes are going to be jam-packed, so much so that each one is going to run between an hour and a half to 2 hours long. Being so long with lots and lots of information, we are very mindful about structure and segments for each and every episode of our ACOTAR series. So it flows all nicely and you get different tidbits out of each of the stretch of chapters.
So first up in every episode, Nicole will kick us off with the Inner Circle debrief. This is where she'll give a summary of what happens in this episode's chapters, but trust me, friends, she does chapter summaries like you've never heard before. You got to count how many pop culture references she makes. It's fantastic.
How long until I make a Hannah Montana reference? You tell me. Then we'll step into the cauldron to discuss key insights, reflections, themes, character analysis, foreshadowing, and maybe even a theory or two. This is the meat of every episode where we go beat by beat through this stretch of chapters. Afterward, Lexi's going to walk us through a world-building topic to help us better understand the lore and how it fits into our story. We are calling this segment Sippin' Tea with the Cereal. A few of these topics will include the treaty, Fae and human history, the Archeron family, Prythian geography, high Fae powers, and oh, so much more.
Finally, we'll wrap up every episode with our favorite moments. Ha! Get it? Favorite moments. Here we will finish the episode out with favorite quotes, heartfelt moments, and other tidbits that make our hearts happy from the stretch of chapters. As far as the lens in which we're going to cover each of these ACOTAR books, first of all, you should know that while we share our opinions and love to make jokes, we always try to look at things from an analytical perspective as well. Like, why is the character acting this way? What was the author's intentions? We are also going to go on quite the journey with many characters in this series. Again, this is spoiler free, so I'm not saying specifically who, but you'll know if you know. And as we start with book one, we are going to embrace the reading experience. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're going to do our best to balance feeling what we're supposed to feel as a first-time reader, while also looking ahead to tie in foreshadowing, reflect on character development, and much more.
Lastly, for this intro episode, here is a quick schedule for the upcoming episodes. We are starting with A Court of Thorns and Roses, which will be an 8-episode deep dive total. Those episodes are going to release every single Monday, and we're kicking it up with episode 1, covering chapters 1 through 5 on February 26th. For the full chapter by chapter breakdown, it is pinned on both of our social media accounts. We are at Fantasy Fangirls Pod on TikTok and Instagram. Then we're going to continue on with A Court of Mist and Fury, A Court of Wings and Ruin, A Court of Frost and Starlight. Don't worry, we're just doing one episode on that. Lexi won't let us do more. And of course, finishing it out with A Court of Silver Flames. Basically, you've got us for a while.
You really do. It's going to be so much fun, friends. Oh my goodness. If you have not already, please give us a follow on social media at Fantasy Fangirls Pod. We share so much more content on social media. We include updates as well, always, and lots of other really great Fantasy Fangirl community content.
Thank you, as always, to our executive producer, Hayden, aka our sanity manager. We're excited to go on this journey with you. And last but not least, if you know you're going to be here for a while, you might as well jump the gun and go ahead and rate and review this podcast. Rate it 5 stars because, oh, what an interesting intro episode. I'm shaking with anticipation. If you're watching us on YouTube, like many, many people do, you can also hit that like and subscribe button because then you'll never miss an episode.
Also, please feel free to email us your favorite ACOTAR and Massverse theories. Our email is fantasyfangirlspod@gmail.com.
You can also find all of these links in the show notes.
All right, we will see you on February 26th as we start our ACOTAR journey. We're so excited. We will see you then. done.
We made it!